You're not lost. You're being called higher. What if this emptiness you're feeling is not a punishment, but an invitation? You keep asking, why is nothing working out? Why do I feel stuck, forgotten, misunderstood? But maybe the reason you feel so out of place is because you're not meant to stay where you are. Maybe the confusion is clarity in disguise. If you've ever felt like you were wandering in the dark, unsure of your purpose, unsure of your next step, this message was made for you. Stay with me until the end. I promise you'll never see being lost the same way again. There comes a moment in everyone's life when the map no longer makes sense. You look around and realize the people you used to connect with no longer understand you. The dreams you once chased don't excite you anymore. And even when you try to force yourself back into the old version of your life, it just doesn't fit. It's terrifying, isn't it? But here's the truth no one tells you. That moment, that disorientation, that ache in your soul is sacred, because it's the moment God begins to whisper, "You're not lost. You're being led somewhere greater." Think about it. In Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a future and a hope." But he never said the plan would be easy. He never promised you wouldn't feel afraid or alone. He just said, "Trust me." So what if this silence is not rejection, but preparation? What if the stillness is God moving in ways you can't see yet? You might be thinking, if this is part of the plan, why does it hurt so much? Because transformation always requires tension. When the caterpillar enters the cocoon, it doesn't just grow wings, it dissolves, it breaks apart. It becomes unrecognizable before it becomes beautiful. You are in that cocoon season. You're not being buried, you're being planted. And God is stripping away what no longer serves you so that you can rise into the version of yourself that He always intended. And yes, it's confusing. Yes, it feels like you're losing yourself. But maybe you're just losing what was never really you. Let me ask you this. Have you ever sat in a quiet room and suddenly felt a pressure in your chest, like something bigger is calling you, but you can't explain it? That's not anxiety. That's not overthinking. That's your spirit waking up. And it hurts because growth always involves breaking through. The shell you're outgrowing, it was once protection. Now it's confinement. And you're not wrong for feeling restless. You're not broken because you don't fit in anymore. You're not lost. You're being elevated. You're outgrowing your surroundings because God is calling you into new territory. You see, most people never tell the truth about spiritual awakening. They say it's peaceful. They say it's beautiful. But what they don't say is that it often starts with a breakdown. A relationship falling apart, a job that no longer fulfills you, a season of isolation where no one seems to understand you. And all you want to do is fix it, go back to the way things were. But deep down, you know you can't, because once your soul begins to expand, you can't shrink back to what was. Psalm 34:18 reminds us, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." So if your spirit feels crushed right now, that's where God does His best work. I want to tell you a story. There was a man, once successful, admired, praised, but slowly things began to fall apart. He lost his job. His friends stopped calling. He felt forgotten, invisible, discarded. He begged God to bring it all back. But the silence only got louder. Until one night, sitting alone in the dark, he whispered, "God, where are you?" And the still, small voice responded, "Right here, in the breaking, in the silence, in the places no one else is willing to sit with you." That man didn't get his old life back. He got a new life. Not based on performance, not based on approval, but based on purpose. Because sometimes losing your life is the only way to find it. So I'm going to tell you something you may not believe right now. This season of uncertainty, it's not a detour. It's the doorway. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. And no, it doesn't make sense yet, but you're not supposed to understand it all at once. You're supposed to walk by faith, not by sight. And if you're still listening, it means something in your soul recognizes the truth behind these words. You were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to live a life that numbs you just to survive. This is your wake-up call. This is your divine disruption. You are being called higher.
Do you know why elevation hurts so much? Because when God starts to lift you, He first has to loosen everything that's been keeping you grounded in the wrong place. That includes people. That includes habits. That includes identities you created just to survive. You may have told yourself, "I have to be strong. I have to be the one who holds it all together." But what if this moment, the unraveling, is where God begins to hold you? We confuse being lost with being unloved, but they're not the same. God never left you. You just outgrew the space you were in. You outgrew the expectations that others placed on you. You outgrew the shallow conversations, the temporary fixes, the false versions of yourself you had to wear just to feel accepted. That's not being lost. That's shedding the weight of who you're not. And it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. Because for you to walk into your purpose, you have to leave behind the comfort of your past. You can't stay where it's safe and expect to grow wings. Birds don't fly by clinging to the nest. They leap. And in the falling, they learn to rise. God is not asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to trust Him, even when it feels like nothing is working, especially when it feels like nothing is working. Because the spiritual path isn't always marked with clarity. It's often marked with surrender. And surrender feels like failure at first. You'll question everything. Why did this happen to me? Why is God silent? Why am I still stuck? But maybe the silence is the space where faith is born. Maybe God's quietness is not absence, but trust. He trusts that you'll keep walking, that you'll keep believing, that even in the confusion, you remember what He promised. For I know the plans I have for you. He didn't say you'd know the plan. He said He knows. And that has to be enough. Because if you knew every detail, you wouldn't need faith. If you had all the answers, you wouldn't need God. So what if the reason He's not showing you the whole picture is because He's protecting you from rushing into something too small for the greatness He's placed inside you? Think about that. You're praying for comfort, but God is preparing you for calling. You're asking for understanding, but He's building endurance. You want relief, He wants transformation. Because what's ahead of you isn't just a better version of your current life. It's a higher one where you no longer have to shrink, settle, or silence your truth just to be accepted. That's not being lost. That's shedding the weight of who you're not. And it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. Because for you to walk into your purpose, you have to leave behind the comfort of your past. You can't stay where it's safe and expect to grow wings. Birds don't fly by clinging to the nest. They leap. And in the falling, they learn to rise. God is not asking you to have all the answers. He's asking you to trust Him even when it feels like nothing is working, especially when it feels like nothing is working. Because the spiritual path isn't always marked with clarity. It's often marked with surrender. And surrender feels like failure at first. You'll question everything. Why did this happen to me? Why is God silent? Why am I still stuck? But maybe the silence is the space where faith is born. Maybe God's quietness is not absence, but trust. He trusts that you'll keep walking, that you'll keep believing, that even in the confusion, you'll remember what He promised. For I know the plans I have for you. He didn't say you'd know the plan. He said He knows. And that has to be enough. Because if you knew every detail, you wouldn't need faith. If you had all the answers, you wouldn't need God. So what if the reason He's not showing you the whole picture is because He's protecting you from rushing into something too small for the greatness He's placed inside you? Think about that. You're praying for comfort, but God is preparing you for calling. You're asking for understanding, but He's building endurance. You want relief. He wants transformation. Because what's ahead of you isn't just a better version of your current life. It's a higher one. One where you no longer have to shrink, settle, or silence your truth just to be accepted. That sink in. God is calling you into a season where you are no longer defined by your wounds. A season where your voice gets stronger, your vision gets clearer, your spirit gets lighter. And yes, to get there, you must walk through uncertainty. You must release control. But the pain you're feeling now is not pointless. It's the pressure of new life being born. Have you ever seen a baby bird crack out of its shell? It shakes, it struggles, it bleeds. But every crack is progress. Every struggle is freedom in the making. You are cracking out of the old shell. You are fighting through the resistance. And every step you take, no matter how small, is a step toward your higher self. So don't despise this season. Don't run from the discomfort. Don't try to numb it, fix it, or rush through it. Sit with it. Listen to it. Because God is in it. Let me remind you, even Jesus had to go through the wilderness before He began His ministry. Even He had to be alone, tempted, and tested. And what came out on the other side of that desert was power, clarity, and purpose. If Jesus had to walk through darkness before the light, why would it be any different for you? This wilderness you're in is holy ground. This is where your real identity is being revealed. Not who the world told you to be, not who trauma told you to be, but who God called you to be. You're not being punished, you're being purified. You're not being forgotten, you're being forged. You're not being broken down, you're being rebuilt. So when the enemy whispers, "You're lost," you answer with confidence, "No, I'm just being led by something bigger than me." Say it out loud if you need to. I am not lost. I am being called higher. This is your realignment. This is your awakening. This is your breakthrough disguised as breakdown. And when you come out of this, you will not be the same. You will not tolerate what you used to. You won't settle for what once satisfied you. You won't fit into places that require you to shrink. You'll walk differently. You'll speak differently. You'll carry a peace that confuses people because they know what you've been through and can't understand how you're still standing. But you will know. You will remember this moment. You'll remember the nights you cried in silence, the mornings you begged for direction, the days you wanted to give up but didn't. And you'll see it all clearly. You were never lost. You were being led. And now, you're rising. If you're hearing this and your heart is pounding, don't ignore it. That's your confirmation. That's your spirit saying, "Yes, this is the truth I've been waiting for." Share this with someone who needs it, because someone else out there is mistaking their calling for confusion. Let them know they're not lost. They're being called higher.
Let's talk about what no one wants to admit. The call of God often comes dressed in chaos, not in clarity, not in comfort. Chaos. That moment when everything you thought was secure begins to shake. When the life you built with your own hands starts to crumble. He speaks inconvenience. He speaks in contrast, in storms, in disruption. Because if he didn't shake things up, you'd stay stuck. You'd cling to the familiar. You'd settle for good enough when he's trying to give you more than you've ever imagined. Sometimes the most spiritual thing that can happen in your life is for everything to fall apart. Because until it does, you won't realize what you were building wasn't strong enough to carry the weight of your calling. Let me be honest with you. This journey you're on, the one where you feel unseen, uncertain, and undone, it's not random. It's designed. God isn't punishing you. He's pulling you into alignment. He's removing the pieces that no longer belong because what he's about to do with you requires more room. You're being expanded. And expansion doesn't come without pressure. You're being stretched. And stretching never feels like progress, it feels like pain. But pain isn't always a sign something's wrong. Sometimes it's proof that something's being made right, that something old is ending, that something divine is beginning. This is the paradox of purpose. It rarely shows up in peaceful packages. It comes through heartbreak. It comes through goodbyes. It comes through losing everything you thought you needed until all that's left is him. And that's when you realize he's all you ever needed. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." You may be crushed, but you're not cursed. You may be weeping, but you're not weak. That ache in your chest, that's not defeat, that's destiny knocking. God allows the collapse so he can build you on solid ground. You had to lose your way so you could find the way. You had to be emptied so he could fill you. You had to be isolated so he could speak without interference. You're not crazy for feeling what you're feeling. This is the spiritual recalibration. This is the holy undoing. This is what it looks like when God starts taking over. And when he takes over, he doesn't do cosmetic work. He goes deep. He rewires. He redefines. He tears down the false identities you picked up from trauma, culture, rejection, comparison, and he replaces them with truth. You're not abandoned. You're not behind. You're not broken beyond repair. You are chosen, you are covered, and you are being called higher. And if the enemy can't destroy your future, he'll try to convince you you're disqualified from it. He'll whisper lies like, "It's too late. You missed it. You're too messed up." But the devil is a liar. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So if you feel unworthy, good. That means you're right where he wants you, dependent, surrendered, ready. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to be willing. Willing to trust him again. Willing to let go of what's dying. Willing to walk even when the path is foggy. Willing to believe that your life is still unfolding in divine order, even when it looks like a mess. Because if you're willing, God will do the rest. He'll take your broken pieces and turn them into beauty. He'll take the tears that no one saw and use them to water your next season. He'll take your failures and flip them into favor. But you have to stop resisting the process. You have to stop trying to make sense of what was never meant to be understood. You have to let God be God. And that means letting go of the version of life you thought you wanted so you can give you the one you actually need. Because what's coming is better than what's gone. What's ahead of you is more fulfilling than what's behind. And what you're stepping into is not just a new chapter, it's a new book. So wipe your tears, lift your head, take a breath. You're not lost. You're being summoned into your becoming. You're in the transition between who you were and who you were always meant to be. And yes, it's messy here. Yes, it's confusing, but it's also sacred. This is holy ground. Don't rush through it. Don't wish it away. God is in the waiting. He's in the ache. He's in the silence. And if you listen closely, you'll hear him say, I'm still here. I've never left. And I'm not finished. There is glory in your story. There is power in your pain. There is purpose in your process. You're not being buried. You are being resurrected. And when you rise, because you will rise, you won't just walk differently. You'll carry a light that sets other people free. You'll become the voice someone else needed when they thought they were too far gone. You'll become proof that God still heals, still calls, still redeems. So if you've been wondering why your world is shaking, it's not falling apart. It's falling into place. God is calling you higher, and you are finally ready to answer.
Before God elevates you, he separates you. And that's the part we never want to talk about, because separation feels like rejection. It feels like abandonment. It feels like everyone is walking away at the exact moment you need them most. You call, and they don't answer. You reach out, and no one sees you. You pour your heart out, and all you get back is silence. But here's what no one tells you. Not everyone can go where God is taking you. You prayed for purpose, didn't you? You asked God to use you, to show you who you really are, to guide you into your calling. But what you didn't realize is that the first step into destiny is letting go. Letting go of what's comfortable. Letting go of what's convenient. Letting go of who you thought you were supposed to be. God removes people and places and patterns not to punish you, but to purify you. Because if you carried the wrong people into your next season, they'd poison it. They'd talk you out of the vision. They'd dilute your fire. They'd pull you back into an identity that no longer fits. This is why the isolation is happening. Not because you're not loved, but because you're being protected. You were never meant to build your future around people who only supported the version of you that stayed small. And it hurts. Of course it hurts. But pain has purpose. Sometimes the ache of separation is the exact pressure God uses to push you into deeper dependency on Him. When people fall away, when the support disappears, when the applause stops, listen closely. That's when God whispers the loudest. Because His voice isn't in the noise. His voice is in the stillness, the quiet, the solitude. Moses had to go up the mountain alone. Jesus went to the garden alone. David wrote his most powerful psalms, not on a throne, but in a cave hiding from Saul. So if God has you in a season of separation, don't resist it. Embrace it. He's stripping away distractions so He can awaken your destiny. He's silencing every other voice so you can finally hear His. You've been so surrounded by opinions, expectations, and obligations that you forgot what your own soul sounds like. This separation, it's not a void. It's a meeting place. It's where God begins to reintroduce you to the version of yourself He always saw. The version that's not dependent on validation. The version that's rooted in identity, not insecurity. The version that's not afraid to stand alone because you know you're never truly alone. You're being recalibrated, rewired, reformed. And no, it doesn't look like success yet. It doesn't look like breakthrough yet. It doesn't look like the vision you had. But that's because God is doing an internal work before He brings the external blessing. Everybody wants the platform, but nobody wants the preparation. Everybody wants the calling, but not the crushing. But the crushing is what produces the oil. The pressure is what reveals the anointing. And you're in it right now. You're in the place between not anymore and not yet. And that place, it's sacred. It's the forge of purpose. It's the refining fire. It's the breaking that leads to birthing. You are not being overlooked. You are being refined in secret so that when you step into the light, you won't need the crowd to validate your worth, because you'll already know who you are. You'll know what you carry. You'll know what it costs to get here.
and you'll never again confuse separation with rejection. You'll recognize it as redirection. You'll see that the people who left made room for the people who were meant to walk with you. You'll thank God for the doors that didn't open. You'll worship Him for the things He didn't allow. Because now you understand, delay isn't denial. It's divine protection. So when you feel lonely, when you feel forgotten, when everything in you wants to go back to what's familiar, don't. Stay where God has you. Stay in the discomfort. Stay in the pressing. Because something is growing in you that's too big to be rushed. And when it's time, you'll know. You'll step into rooms you once prayed for. You'll speak words that break chains. You'll carry a strength that can't be explained because it wasn't built through ease, but through endurance. The separation will make sense. And the silence, you'll realize it was never empty. It was full of God. He was there, strengthening you in the night. He was there, catching every tear. He was there, whispering, "Keep going, I'm not finished yet." And now, look at you, still here, still breathing, still listening, still believing. That's not weakness. That's resilience. That's faith. That's calling. You're not lost. You're being elevated. And every person who counted you out, every situation that tried to break you, every night you wondered if you'd ever feel peace again, they'll all become part of the testimony. A story not of perfection, but of perseverance. A story that will heal others. A story that proves even when everything falls away, God remains. And if you've got God, you've got everything. You don't need the crowd. You don't need the spotlight. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the courage to say yes. Yes to the calling. Yes to the unknown. Yes to the higher place you were born for. So if it feels like you're losing everything, maybe you're just shedding the old you, the false you, the scared you, because the real you is rising, and the world won't be ready for what's coming next.
There comes a point in your journey when you realize you can't go back. Not because you burned bridges, not because doors are closed, but because you're not the same person anymore. Something shifted. The old life doesn't fit. The old habits don't satisfy. The old you doesn't exist. And that's terrifying, but it's also liberating. Because for the first time, you're not pretending. You're not performing. You're not chasing validation from people who never really saw you. You're becoming who God created you to be. And becoming isn't a straight line. It's not a clean process. It's a sacred mess. It's taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's having faith one day and doubt the next. It's falling apart in the morning and standing tall by nightfall. But through it all, you're growing. You're learning to sit with the silence and trust that God is still working. You're learning to walk with wounds and still speak with grace. You're learning that broken doesn't mean worthless, and healing doesn't always mean the pain is gone. Sometimes healing is just knowing the pain no longer defines you. You're learning to love yourself, not in spite of the scars, but because of them. Because every scar tells a story. I was hurt, but I healed. I was knocked down, but I got back up. I was overlooked, but I found my worth in Him. This is the becoming. It's not glamorous. It's not Instagram-worthy, but it's real. And real is what God uses. He's not looking for perfection. He's looking for surrender. He's not asking you to be fearless. He's asking you to show up even when you're scared. He's not calling the loudest, the most confident, or the most qualified. He's calling the willing.
Because when God puts His hand on your life, everything changes. And not just on the outside. The real shift happens internally, when your identity is no longer tied to what you do, what you have, or who accepts you, but to whose you are. You belong to Him. And when you truly understand that, you stop trying to prove yourself. You stop striving. You stop begging people to see your value. Because you finally realize your worth was never up for debate. God decided it before you ever took your first breath. For I know the plans I have for you, He said in Jeremiah 29:11. Not, I might have a plan, not, if you're good enough, I'll come up with something. He said, I know. That means nothing you've been through surprised Him. The heartbreak, the failure, the detour, it's all part of it. And maybe you feel like you've wasted time. Maybe you're looking at your life and wondering, how did I end up here? But let me remind you, God wastes nothing. He will use every moment, every wrong turn, every broken piece. He doesn't need perfect circumstances to do something perfect in you. He just needs your yes. Yes, even though you're tired. Yes, even though you're unsure. Yes, even though you still feel lost some days. That's enough. That's more than enough. You don't have to see the whole staircase. You just need to take the next step. And the next step might look like resting. It might look like praying when you don't hear anything back. It might look like forgiving someone who doesn't deserve it, or forgiving yourself. It might look like letting go of the life you planned so you can receive the one God has been preparing all along. This is your time, not to perform, but to align. To align with who you really are, not who the world told you to be. Because the world will tell you, be louder, be stronger, be more. But God says, be still and know. Know that I am God. Know that I am working. Know that I am with you even when it feels like I'm not. You don't need to chase success. You need to chase surrender. Because in surrender, there is peace. In surrender, there is provision. In surrender, there is purpose. You're not behind. You're not too late. You haven't missed it. You are right on time for the version of your life that's aligned with heaven. So breathe. Stop striving. Let go. You don't need to fix it all. You don't need to figure it all out. You just need to trust. God is already ahead of you. He's already in your tomorrow. He's already preparing people, places, and opportunities you haven't even imagined yet. And one day, sooner than you think, you'll look back at this season and say, that's when everything changed. That's when I stopped chasing and started receiving. That's when I stopped hiding and started healing. That's when I stopped surviving and started living. So keep walking. Keep showing up. Keep believing that something sacred is happening beneath the surface. Because it is. You are not lost. You are being aligned. You are being elevated. You are becoming. And the best part? You've only just begun.
What if the storm you're going through isn't meant to break you, but to build you? What if everything falling apart is actually everything falling into place? You prayed for clarity. You asked for breakthrough. You begged God to take you deeper. But then the storm came,
and suddenly you questioned everything. You thought God had abandoned you. You thought the chaos meant you missed your chance. You thought the silence meant he was done speaking. But what if this storm isn't the evidence of his absence? What if it's the evidence of his presence? Let me remind you of something. Jesus didn't avoid the storm. He walked into it. When the disciples were in the boat, terrified by the waves, Jesus didn't calm the sea right away. He came to them in the middle of it. That's where he meets us. Not just on the mountaintop, not in the safety of clear skies, but in the middle of the wind, the waves, the confusion, the breakdown. He comes when you feel overwhelmed. He comes when you can't sleep. He comes when your mind is racing and your soul is weary. And sometimes he doesn't calm the storm right away because he's trying to calm you first. The storm reveals your foundation. It shows you what you've been building on. It exposes the cracks you couldn't see when everything was going well. And even though it hurts, even though it shakes you, it's necessary. Because God is preparing you for something greater, and you can't carry greatness with weak roots. He has to make sure you're anchored. He has to strengthen what's beneath the surface before he elevates what's above. So if everything around you feels unstable, maybe it's because God is making you unshakable. You asked for strength, he gave you struggle. You asked for growth, he gave you pressure. You asked for direction, he gave you delay. Not to harm you, but to train you, to mature you, to build your spiritual muscle, to make sure you're not just called, but prepared. Because calling without character leads to collapse. God loves you too much to let you rise before you're ready. So he allows the storm, not to punish you, but to reveal you, to show you what's still wounded, to teach you how to stand when it feels like the ground is moving, to make sure you can praise him even when the promise hasn't arrived yet. This is what spiritual maturity looks like. Praising him in the hallway, not just when the door opens. Thanking him for the rain, not just the harvest. Trusting him in the dark, not just when the sun is shining. Anyone can believe when it's easy. Anyone can have faith when the blessings are flowing. But God is building the kind of faith in you that doesn't bend under pressure. He's teaching you to trust what he said, not just what you see. And that's why the storm is the sign. It's proof that your life is no longer ordinary. It's proof that the enemy is nervous. It's proof that you're carrying something powerful, because the enemy doesn't attack empty vessels. He attacks purpose. He attacks favor. He attacks anything aligned with heaven. So if you're feeling the resistance, the warfare, the pressure, that's not failure. That's confirmation. You are on the edge of something holy. And that storm, it's not your ending. It's your announcement. It's the shaking that comes before the shift. It's the tension that comes before the transition. It's the sound of chains breaking in the spirit. Don't let it scare you. Don't let it convince you that God forgot. He didn't forget you. He's forming you. He's forging your character. He's anchoring your identity. He's preparing the table in front of your enemies. Psalm 23 doesn't say he removes your enemies. It says he prepares a table in their presence. Because the goal is not to eliminate the adversity. It's to prove that even in adversity, you are still anointed. Even when you're shaking, you are still chosen. Even in the storm, you are still safe. That's the beauty of being called higher. It doesn't mean the storms stop. It means they no longer define you. Because your peace is no longer tied to circumstances. Your identity is no longer tied to performance. Your faith is no longer tied to feelings. You're anchored, rooted, unmovable. Because your soul knows something your mind hasn't fully grasped yet. You're not being destroyed. You're being developed. And when you come out of this storm, and you will, you won't just survive. You'll shine. You'll speak differently. You'll love differently. You'll carry a wisdom that only the storm could have taught you. So lift your head. Fix your focus. Speak life over your future. This storm isn't the end. It's the beginning. God is still with you, still speaking, still moving, still calling you higher.
There's something powerful that happens when you finally realize
You were chosen for this, not by accident, not by coincidence, not by random chance. You were handpicked by God for the journey you're on. Even this part, the confusing part, the painful part, the part that feels like it's breaking you, it's all part of the assignment. And I know, you didn't ask for this level of warfare. You didn't pray for this kind of pressure. You didn't imagine that the path to purpose would feel this lonely. But here you are, still breathing, still walking, still fighting battles no one even knows about. That's not weakness. That's divine strength. You see, many are called, but few are willing to say yes when the call doesn't come with comfort. You said yes to something you didn't fully understand, and that takes faith. You're still showing up even when you feel unseen, and that takes courage. You're still trying to heal, still trying to grow, still trying to trust God in a world that taught you not to, and that takes power. You are not just surviving. You are carrying something that's going to change lives. That pain you've been through, it's not just about you. It's the soil for your ministry. It's the foundation of your voice. It's the credibility behind your calling. You're going to help people not because you lived a perfect life, but because you survived an imperfect one and refused to let it define you. You're going to speak life into people who are standing where you once stood, and they'll listen, not because you're famous or flawless, but because your presence carries the weight of someone who's been there. You've walked through the valley. You've fought through the night. You've stared down the voices that told you to quit, and you kept going. That's why your life is sacred. That's why your story matters. Don't let the enemy convince you that your brokenness disqualifies you. God is not looking for polished perfection. He's looking for people who are willing to be real. Because what the world needs right now isn't more influencers. It needs more healers, more truth tellers, more people who carry fire in their bones. Not because they want attention, but because they've seen what darkness looks like and refuse to stay there. That's you. That's why the resistance has been so strong. The enemy knows what's inside of you. He's terrified of you fully stepping into your identity. Because when you do, you won't just find your freedom. You'll unlock freedom in others. Your breakthrough is someone else's blueprint. Your voice is someone else's rescue rope. Your yes is going to ripple through generations. So no, you're not crazy. You're called. No, you're not weak. You're wired for warfare. No, you're not lost. You're being launched. This is the rise before the reveal. This is the cocoon cracking open. This is the oil being pressed out of the olive. And it had to be this way. Because what you're carrying can't be mass-produced. It had to be developed in the dark, in the silence, in the spaces where no one clapped, no one saw you, and no one understood what God was doing in you. But you knew. You could feel the stirring. You could feel the shift. You could feel that something sacred was happening, even when you couldn't explain it. And here's the truth. If God allowed it, He's going to use it. Every tear, every loss, every disappointment, every delay, every night you cried into your pillow asking, "Why me?" Because you were chosen. Chosen doesn't mean you were the strongest. It meant you were the most surrendered. God knew that even when you doubted yourself, you'd keep coming back to Him. He knew that even when life knocked the wind out of you, you'd refuse to stay on the ground. He knew that the world would try to harden your heart, but you'd still choose love. He knew that the fire would refine you, not destroy you. So when it feels like too much, when the weight gets heavy, when the road feels lonely, remember this. You didn't come this far to stop now. You've been prepared in private for what God is about to do in public. And when He opens the door, it's going to make sense. Every delay, every rejection, every not yet, they weren't denials. They were divine protection. Because what's coming requires your full strength, your full healing, your full authenticity. And you're ready now. No more shrinking. No more apologizing for your gifts. No more dimming your light to make others comfortable. You were born to shine. You were called to rise. You were chosen for such a time as this. So take your place. Walk in boldness. Speak like you've got heaven back in you, because you do. Live like you're already free, because you are. And don't look back. The old you served a purpose, but you're not going back to her. She survived. You're about to thrive.
This is the moment you rise. Not with fanfare, not with applause, but with quiet certainty in your spirit that says, I was made for more. You're not who you were. And though the wounds are still healing, your heart is stronger. Though the path is still foggy, your faith is clearer. Though you may still feel the weight of what you've walked through, your soul has been forged in the fire. You've died to your old self 1,000 times, and somehow you're still here. Breathing, becoming, beaming with a light that darkness could not extinguish. This is your resurrection season. Not the kind the world celebrates, but the kind heaven smiles at. Because this rise isn't loud, it's holy. It's the rise of someone who no longer chases approval. The rise of someone who knows that silence doesn't mean God is gone. It means He's working. The rise of someone who finally realizes, I am not lost. I am being called higher. You've spent years fighting yourself, fighting your past, fighting your fear, fighting to prove you're enough. But look at you now. You stopped running. And in that stillness, God met you. He didn't need you to be perfect. He didn't need you to have all the answers. He just needed your heart. Psalms 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Not be impressive, not be everything to everyone. Just be still. And in your stillness, you heard it. The whisper, the call, the truth you always knew deep down, but were too afraid to believe. You were never lost. You were always being led. Led through heartbreak, not to break you, but to open you. Led through the valley, not to defeat you, but to strengthen you. Led through the wilderness, not to starve you, but to strip away the false gods you built out of fear. God didn't abandon you. He anchored you. In His timing, in His grace, in His perfect sovereign plan. And now you're ready, not to be seen, not to be praised, but to serve a world desperate for hope, to serve with your story, to serve with your scars, to serve with the compassion you only gained by walking through fire. This is the true success. Not the kind that glitters, but the kind that heals.
the kind that reminds others, you're not alone. I've been there too. And there's still hope. You see, your rise isn't just about you. It's about the ones watching you. The ones who need proof that God still restores, still revives, still reclaims the forgotten and turns them into warriors. You are that proof. You are walking redemption. You are living testimony. And don't be surprised when people don't recognize you anymore. They weren't meant to. You've outgrown the version of yourself they were comfortable with. And that's okay. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be obedient. You're not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not here to fit in. You're here to set people free. So take your light and shine unapologetically. Speak with authority, not arrogance, but anointing. Move like someone who knows heaven backs every step. Because you're not walking alone anymore. God has always been there. In the rising, in the resting, in the wreckage, and now in the release. Because you're releasing the guilt. You're releasing the shame. You're releasing the belief that your past disqualifies your future. You're stepping into the now. And the now says, you are whole. You are worthy. You are chosen. You are ready. This is your higher ground. This is the elevation. This is the becoming. Not for status, not for show, but because the world needs who you are when you're fully aligned with heaven. And you finally believe it. Not just with your mind, but with your soul. So walk boldly, speak gently, love fiercely, live freely. You've answered the call, and you'll never be lost again. You're not who you were. You're not what they said. You're not what you've done. You are who God says you are, and that is more than enough. This is your rise. This is your rebirth. This is your reminder. You were never lost. You were being called higher.